my profile. Sorry, if you're watching, we're just waiting, ready to go live. And we're live. How are we today? How's our week's been? We'll just wait to see if anyone else is going to come online, and then we're going to get ready to start. So today's conversation, we're going to be discussing co-parenting and the questions that we were asked about co-parenting. Co-parenting was a very heated discussion that we had with a number of people today online, not today, just on today, throughout the week. And it's an issue that a lot of ex-couples are facing, because it is very hard, especially when there's emotions involved. Yeah. It's a very hard thing to deal with, because we sometimes forget to prioritise the children.
And depending on whether it's a new thing as well. So if you've just recently split up with a partner and you're trying to kind of find your way into co-parenting, that's probably the most difficult time.
100%. So what we've done is we've gone through the questions that you've asked us. We've kind of made the questions, because some of them are different, but they're exactly the same, but sent differently. And again, we've taken out him and her and put in a generic context, because this goes for men and women, most of the advice we're going to give today. So today, co-parenting. If there's any other questions that we discussed that we haven't brought up today, please feel free to ask. If you're ready to start, say hello and let's go.
So one of the first questions that we got was, my ex doesn't back me up when I discipline the kids. What can I do about it?
So there's two scenarios to this. So the first one is the good part of the scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the good part is that you work together as a team and try to come up with similar discipline methods. So if, for instance, you use time out at your house, I'm going to use time out at my house. Yeah. If I take away privileges such as TV, internet, telephone, whatever it is, we kind of both navigate that, and I'll do that at my house, you do that at your house. Yeah.
So that's if the communication level, so like Selena said, if it's a relationship that's just broken up and you're not seeing eye to eye, this might not be something you're able to come up with, because you're really struggling to talk because of the breakup, and you might not see eye to eye at this present moment in time. So the best way to deal with it this way would be going to your support network. So your support network could be your family, your siblings, your friends, and getting them to help support you with the discipline of your child, because you can't really affect how the other parent is disciplining the children at their home, because they might be just trying to do everything against you at that particular moment in time. So you just need to make sure your house is consistent, and they know when they're coming into your house, this is how it's going to be, and everybody in your support network is putting that same effort into them. And it's also a thing of, if you have a relationship with your ex-partner's family,
that's great. Yeah, if you can go to nanny, auntie, uncle, and kind of get their support as well, that's even better. Yeah,
and then they might be able to relay the information back, because sometimes it's not, you don't want to butt heads with your ex-partner. So it could be a thing of using somebody in the middle of you before you go to mediation, or before you have to go to court, and get them to be the mediator between you, because at the end of the day, the child is always the priority.
Yeah. And it takes a village to raise a child. One child, it takes a village. So it's not, don't feel embarrassed to go and ask for support from your family, from the school, whoever it is. Don't be embarrassed. We all need support.
Because sometimes the school can be very beneficial, especially when you're going through a new breakup. The child might not be expressing things to you at home, and could be bringing it into school and misbehaving in school. So you want to carry on the consistency with the behavioural management in school if the child's suffering, because children see relationship breakups and they see the issues that you have as a couple. And also, one more point, negative talking. Don't talk badly in front of your child about the other parent. Well, that'll be another one, but especially when we're disciplining, because you're frustrated with them, don't bring that to the child. That's not the child's issue. Your child is the priority, and their behaviour. So work on them specifically, and when you're away from the child, try and deal with the scenario with you and their partner, and you're both dealing with emotions. So it's understandable that you might be finding it hard to communicate.
And not only that as well, if you're dealing with two separate households, sometimes what I find, I've got friends that do it all the time. So something might happen at home with the child, they get disciplined by mum, and then they call dad, and then they're getting disciplined by dad, and it's like, you know, we've got to cut that off as well. Like, if the child's being disciplined at home, they've I don't know if you want to say they've been in trouble at home. Why are we then going to dad for dad to moan at the child? And I don't think that's something that we should be doing either. So if your child's getting disciplined at home and they've been naughty and you've done it, they don't need to be, getting in trouble with dad as well.
Yeah. Another thing that we found was a very hot topic was dividing holidays. How do you divide holidays up? Because obviously you've got 6 weeks in the summer, 2 weeks over Christmas, 2 weeks at Easter, and loads of different other occasions. So there was a number of people that said like they're struggling with how they divide that up.
So it all depends on kind of what terms you're on with your ex to start with. If you can go off a schedule that works for you, where you do one Christmas on, one Christmas off, and you maybe have Christmas Day on Boxing Day or Christmas Eve, that way the children get 2 Christmases. So it's exciting for the kids that they get to spend 1 year with mum, 1 year with dad. But then also, it doesn't have to work that way. It doesn't have to be just because I had them last Christmas, you have to have them this Christmas. Yeah. The other parent might not even really be into Christmas or birthday. So unless you're just doing it to be petty, like I just want them just for the sake because it's Christmas Day, it doesn't have to be what we see on movies where, sometimes the kids get packed off for the weekend, mum goes on holiday, dad's got the kids, it's great. It doesn't have to be like that. What we see on TV doesn't have to work for us.
Reality.
No.
Yeah, because the emotions again are high in a new breakup. Some of the things that you might want to consider is a actual planner.
Oh my God! Sorry, there's a spider.
Where's the spider?
No, that's not happening. Right behind you, Tom.
Sorry, people. Technical issue. Can I have a tissue?
Let me see it. You're lying. You're such a liar. Show me.
Sorry. Sorry about the technical issue, people. What's it? Acrophobia. Arachnophobia. But as we were saying about holiday, you could end up like finding a holiday planner, something you can work on together as a couple, where you plan it down and it's in paper. And in worst case scenario, if you can't find a communication to get over them hurdles, mediation, somebody, a professional that can actually help you lay these foundations, or worst case scenario is court. Get things laid in stone, especially if you're really struggling with each other to communicate. I don't know why a relationship could possibly end or what the scenario was, but if it is, court is always an option. And sometimes it's the best option. I know we don't want to go through the whole hassle of the court, but we're trying to make the child a priority. And the less we're arguing with each other, the better the relationship for the child will be. And
also, it's got to be what, as you just said, what works best for the children. We've tried and tested it, and we've come up with a solution that works good for us. So when the kids go to their dad, so my sons, they go to their dads on Christmas Eve. It used to be Christmas morning. That wasn't working. They were coming back late. They were full. They were tired. So Christmas Day with us just didn't make any sense. It wasn't special. So we come to the agreement that they would go to their dad's Christmas Eve. They have Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve with their dad. They have presents. So they're having 2 Christmases and they love it. And that works for us. But what works for me might not work for you.
But it's finding the resolution for your own family. And like I said, if you can't deal with each other by putting down a holiday planner, then it's mediation. If mediation doesn't work for you, because it doesn't always work for everybody because emotions are still high, it's court.
Yeah.
And please feel free to do that. It shouldn't be a stress that prolongs any more than what it needs to do, because the foundation for this child needs to be set in stone and continued. The resentment between you and your partner needs to be left out of it when dealing with the child directly. Andrew, I always allow my kids to be their mum's Christmas morning because I feel they should be with their mum. See, and that's a resolution that you found that works for yourself. So, and that's what ideally we'll be able to find is a compromise in the relationship. We're no longer in a relationship with that person, but as long as we have children with them, we need to find a compromise. And yeah, Andrew, well done on that, man.
Yeah, amazing. Next question is, I don't like his mum's new partner. So this person doesn't like their child's mum's new partner. That makes sense?
Yeah. So the partner, whatever the partner is, the child doesn't like. The child or the parent?
No, the parent doesn't like.
The parent doesn't like. That changes the whole answer to the question.
Partner.
So, first off, your influence on their partner is very little. So you shouldn't be holding resentment for that partner because you won't get to know them. And you could have a biased opinion on them because of your feelings towards your partner, and just be holding it there. So number one, don't talk negatively in front of that child. That child shouldn't be told how negatively you feel about the partner that the person's dealing with. You should be keeping that to yourself or to your circle. Or if there's a particular reason you don't like that partner, addressing your ex with that issue that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I think it all comes in context to why don't you like the partner? Is it because they're not treating your child a certain way, or they're treating your child a certain way, or is it just because I just don't like them? I just don't want them around.
Yeah.
It's all the context of it. If they're doing something that you don't like, then obviously you need to sit down and have that conversation. That needs to be addressed. If it's just a case of you don't like them, kind of need to get over it.
Yeah, so it's working out your feelings and how you're feeling and where this actual emotion towards the partner's coming from. Because that's the most important thing. If your partner's seeing fit that partner's in their life, it could be a matter of how long they've been together. Hopefully your partner isn't getting the child to meet every partner that they have. Your partner is deemed fit that it was time to introduce them to the child, and that could be a long-term relationship for them. So don't hold that bias there. And if there is something, communicate that with them.
Next question is, my ex spoils the kids, so I look like the bad parent.
That's a no-win situation. It's a no-win case scenario. You can't affect how your ex treats your children when they're not with you. So if he wants to buy things for them, and them, not him, them, if they want to buy things for them and treat them in a particular way, that might just be because they're financially more stable than yourself, or they like treating their children, or they might believe it's a competition to buy them things.
Yeah, I think as long as you're setting firm foundation for your children, you're setting good morals, good values, forget all the materialistic things. Like, it's not making you look like a bad parent. I think when I had a conversation today with somebody, and they were saying that when we're younger, we are so angry that our mums and dads discipline us and they don't buy us what we want. And then when we get older, we realise, you know what, I'm glad you didn't spoil me. I'm glad you didn't let me do what I want to do. And we can see it. They might not see it now, but they will thank you later. Yeah. Like, okay, you bought me some trainers, but
what did you do to set me up? Yeah. Parenting's a long game. Parenting is not about reaping your rewards now for what your child has achieved or what you're getting your child. Parenting is 18, 20, 21, 35, and you becoming a grandparent, maybe even great grandparent if you're lucky enough to live that. So setting the firm foundations, discipline, morals and values for your child is more important to your long-term benefit of your child than short-term rewards and luxuries.
Yeah.
Don't think about what they're doing. Worry about you setting the foundation in your home. Your home's much more important and your child is prioritised than it is luxuries and goods and values.
It's definitely time. We take time over everything.
Yeah.
How much should the kid's opinion affect my decision making? That's a great point.
In what context are you talking about? Are you talking about the relationship, how they're seeing their children? What context? Because that again depends on what we're talking about. So if you could give us some sort of context of what you're talking about. But if I was talking about my child and my journey in particular, now Rihanna's now 14 years old. She doesn't dictate to me, but I understand she's growing up as a child, and sometimes she doesn't want to come and see me because she has a friend circle. So yes, Rihanna, I understand, but she comes when she feels free. As children grow up, they become adults of themselves, and they always know when to turn to you. So she'll still call me just to talk, just to have a conversation. And as you know, as growing up yourself, you become more established and you stop talking to your parents. Even a child living in your own home, as you grow up, they become more inclined to talk to their friend, and it becomes more of a task to talk to them and get them to open up to you. So what benefits when it comes to coming to your house and coming to your house as a parent that's away from the home? Allow your child to have freedom when they reach a certain age, because you don't want to force things onto them and then resent you for it. But also don't let them dictate the relationship.
What if they didn't like, so for instance, what if they didn't like your new partner? How would that affect your decision in staying with that partner, for instance?
That's quite a massive decision that you have to make. Obviously, if it's a short-term partner that you've just met and you've introduced it, you probably shouldn't introduce them in the first place. But I believe most kids will find it hard to adapt to a new partner in their life. So make sure you're only ready to introduce your children to a partner you're ready to settle down with and for a prolonged period of time.
that kind of rolls into our next question. Someone's wrote in and said, why won't they allow me to introduce my new partner to my children? That's all within context as well. It depends on how long you've been seeing this new partner for. So as Tom just said, you don't really want to be introducing your kids to a new partner that you've been with for a couple of weeks, or someone that you're kind of not intending to go anywhere with. We don't want to introduce our kids to everybody that it could just be sex. You're not going to introduce your kids to someone that you're just having sex with.
You don't want your child to get an emotional attachment to anybody that they don't need to.
And children get attachments very quickly as well. So you don't want to be introducing your child to a girlfriend or a boyfriend and you know it's going nowhere. So, I mean, I don't know how long they've been together or what the context is, but if it's a new partner, I completely understand. I wouldn't want my children to be introduced to somebody that you've just got to know maybe a couple of weeks. But if it's long term, then that kind of needs to be sat down and a conversation needs to be had. Maybe even me getting to know the partner. Yeah. You know, if you're going to be around my children, I kind of want to know what you're about. Yeah, don't be afraid. If the communication barriers are there between you and your ex, then it might be good to have some sort of introduction to the partner. I don't mean go and sit out on a date round the table, but you know what, go and turn up at the house and your partner's there. It could be a phone call just to introduce them. Don't be scared to make that introduction. Again, that's if the communication barriers are there. If the partner is not allowing you because they are not accepting of it, then again, I would have it as if you're morally withstanding and you understand all the other things are in place, you took time out to get to know the lady or gentleman that you want to introduce to your child, you believe that they're going to be a long-term relationship, you have to make that decision yourself and take it upon yourself to do that. And if your ex decides to make some sort of issue about it, I'm going to say it again, mediation and court. If communication barriers stand, your child becomes the first priority. Don't make that stress come onto your shoulders, that burden that ex might put on you because of this. Start the process in place. Don't allow the child to become a weapon or a tool that can become a resentment for you in this relationship. Put things in place to reduce the stress on everyone's place. It might cost money. It might take time, but your child has to be the priority. But you also hear, I mean, I've heard it lots of times where people say, I don't want another man around my child, or I don't want another woman around my child. So is it just for the fact of I don't want them to have a partner? You know, you don't know whether they're hurting. From my point of view, when I was growing up, I would have said exactly the same thing. I don't want another man around my child. But obviously, after all the mistakes and learning experiences in my life, I realised that hopefully we never break up. Touch wood, touch wood, touch wood. But I now know you as a person, and I would expect you to take the steps and measures to make sure you filtered out kind of the bullshit, and when you're ready to introduce someone else, that has happened. And that comes with making sure that we're, like I said, I've had my mistakes, we've all had our mistakes, making sure you're your partner, you know them quite well. So not just sleeping around and having children out of relationships and doing bits and bobs. Know your partner as well as you can before you make that commitment into having a child. And that sometimes means, like I said, we've all made our mistakes, encouraging people not to have sex early on in a relationship, because you don't know that person. You could end up in a relationship long term with a child that you didn't even know the person, who goes around introducing your children to people you don't want them to. You don't even know their friend circle. You don't know what your child's been brought up into. So to start off where we're talking about children, let's start filtering our partners more effectively. And I know a lot of people probably on the live now are of our age, so we're at the other end, but let's encourage our children. Oh yeah, our end. We're all mid-aged people now. But you know, encouraging our children, like I know, encouraging our children to stay with their partners, to not go around willy-nilly dipping it. And say dipping it. Is there any more questions anyone would like to ask? Thank you, Tommy, for your comment. Well, we've done our 5 questions now, and hopefully Damien, we answered your question effectively. We've got a couple of tips that we could try to use when we're talking about our co-parenting with our parent. So number 1 is communication.
When we've broken up, we will struggle to communicate unless we've broken up on fair terms.
Yeah, and making sure that we're consistent with the kids. So if you're saying you're coming to see the kids on a Saturday, you go and see the kids on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Obviously, things happen, but just try to remain as consistent as possible.
Yeah, don't break down the consistency in a child's life, because it affects the kid more than it affects you or the other parent. It's the children you're letting down. Always remember that. It's the child's priority first. Do not become consistent in letting your child down. They will notice this. They will notice patterns in your behaviour. Setting boundaries. So once the communication's broken down, or whether it's not broken down, boundaries are set. So if the communication's still there and we're able to talk to each other and discuss boundaries, time, schedules, again, introducing new partners and have real conversations, keep them boundaries, keep up to them boundaries, because when it's time to hold someone else accountable, are you holding them boundaries to the level you're meant to be? And if the boundaries can't be set, say this again, communication breakdown, mediation, court, don't be scared to take the steps to make sure the boundaries are in place for your child.
And putting your child first. Always put the child first. As long as the child is happy, healthy, safe, what more can you ask for?
Yeah. Child first every time. The child is the priority, and that's what we're working towards. We're working towards a better future for that child, whether it be in one home when you were together or in two homes now you're separated. Every action you do for that child should be betterment of that child's well-being and not to get one over on each other.
Yeah. And respecting each other. As we said earlier, making sure that we're not bad-mouthing the other parent in front of the children. We're not putting our opinions on that child, because, you know, it could be the odd comment that you're saying, like, Daddy's a dickhead.
Yeah.
That child hears that constantly. They're forming an opinion of their dad, which they don't necessarily have, but mummy keeps saying Daddy's a dickhead. Yeah. So don't talk negatively of the other parent in front of your child. As much as they could piss you off, he could be a dickhead. The child don't need to know he's a dickhead.
We've got one question from Tommy. Thank you, Tommy. How do you communicate with your partner without it turning into an argument? So I can't guarantee you will not argue with your partner. I can guarantee you can only control yourself. So if we're talking about co-parenting here specifically, and not out of context of the co-parenting, because it's different avenues and different skills and tools for different situations. But if we're arguing constantly with the co-parent, and that is probably because emotions are high and we can't have it, sometimes you've got to walk away from the conversation. Sometimes you have to be the bigger person if they're constantly firing shots at you. We've done a video today where a gentleman and his wife were about to hand over the kid, and there was a breakdown in communication. I don't know why the situation had escalated so much, but in the end I think she drove off with the child.
They were being petty.
Both of them were being petty. She wouldn't hand over the child, and at some point you have to step away and say, you know what, fine, okay, the better thing for today for the child is you take the child home, because I'm not going to argue today about this situation, but now I've got to take the steps in order to make this relationship work. So first off, we're going to go to our support network. We're going to go to each other, find a way that we can get the child to me without me communicating with you, if that's necessary. If that breaks down, we're going to go to see a professional for help. We're going to go and see mediation. So we're going to try and work out a schedule that we can both keep through a mediator, whether it be the child gets dropped to a mediator and then I go to the mediator and collect the child and take the child, and it works like that. And the last step, which we hopefully you don't have to go through, but is a necessity if the communication is so bad and you can't find a resolution in any other way, is a court. We need to get this down on paper. But then we also have to accept that sometimes the court won't necessarily come out with the answer that you want. You might want full custody. The judge will say, no, that parent wins custody. Sometimes you're not going to get what you want, and that's part of life. And then once we accept that, making sure the child is always priority. Like I said, Tommy, sorry I can't answer it in a more wider context, but we can have a conversation at a different time about arguments in different scenarios. But thank you very much for the question. Is there any more questions that anybody would like to answer? Answered, sorry. Well, you lot, thank you very much for coming. It was a pleasure. Sorry about last week. It was a severe breakdown in communication on our behalf. So sorry very much. Have a great evening and a wonderful weekend. Any advice or any support that you need, please feel free to message either Selena or myself. We're available on Facebook Messenger. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and we'll see you later.
Ciao.